load it up for you. Like a TVZ on Frost. I do like how I load up those replays so much faster on the new rig. Anyway, so spawning in the upper left, we have playing as our purple Terran, Schwinny, listed as playing for PEOBS, but not in fact today playing for Team All Inspiration. And in the lower right on Frost, we have Kitty as our green Zerg, playing for Watmate, which seems to be the typical clan tag of Team Bear Sloth. So the first Overlord is not going in the right direction, but it's almost impossible that it would be, as it is a cross spawn, and I very rarely see a Zergs on the first Overlord to a cross spawn. And both these players noting that this is their first game in the CTL. This was week 1. Actually, the last series of week 1 that I'll be covering, as I'll have covered all of week 1 and beyond to week 2 after this. I may actually do one of the week 2 ones tonight as well, although I'll break after games. Anyway, second Overlord headed in the typical direction, and see a hatch first. Whereas our Terran player is looking to do the typical Reaper expand by the looks of things. Just finishing up. Once again, I see that at starting up the supply depot as part of the wall before getting that barracks up, and then finishing it after. Seen that done throughout the Chobo Team League, and I very rarely see it anywhere. So, something I like to note and comment on. Suppose it would be helpful against, say, a very early Zergling attack, 6 pool or whatever. Anyway, that first Reaper is going to head out. Be their first real scout for our Terran player, although he does actually have an SCV that has confirmed that Kitty is not in that corner. So he's going to know really quick where his opponent is. Be able to Reaper down to try to do the typical early harass that a Reaper does. In the meantime, we see a Marine headed out and the command center being built up. So that SCV is heading in to see what you can see. Sees the drones being transferred and finds some Zerglings. Zerglings don't quite catch it though, and that Reaper is about to be able to fight off those Zerglings. Reaper does get a kill on one of them. In the meantime, we are going to see that typical Hellion play out of factory down on the reactor. In fact, it looks like he's likely going mech entirely. No, he's just moving the barracks down here, starting a wall off second base. But we do see a second factory, so it looks like Schwinny's going to be going mech. With the Zergling's speed and a Baneling nest on the way, Kitty is building for a game against Bio, and it looks like he's not facing Bio at all. He does have an Overlord in position to scout this, but actually sending the Overlord away, keep him alive. In the meantime, Kitty is sending across a pretty big number of Zerglings. Gonna counter a full wall off with actually 3 barracks and a bunker, so perhaps we're gonna see a nice even mix out of Schwinny, which is rare, but certainly worked for Fantasy in a recent Pro League game I watched. Zerglings do get a few of those Hellions for pretty much free. But unless they want to try to Bane bust through a barracks, they're not that wall. Looks like they are going to try to Bane bust through. There's a lot of Banelings, but you're going to need them to actually bust barracks that way. SCV coming over and seeing, yep, that's Banelings. Start a little bit of work on that wall. Looks like he deciding whether to actually do it. The Banelings are going to head in. They do get the barracks, but the Zerglings are just standing here. Now, oh, I see they were waiting for their reinforcements. But it looks like that was pretty much just going to be a waste because another barracks is being built immediately. Might try to do a Bane bust again, making a number more Banelings. Sure how well that's going to work out with all those Hellions there to defend. Yeah, they can't even bust through the wall because he didn't have enough Banelings, so... As Bane busts go, that did not work out. And with that being the case, looks like Kitty's gonna go home with the rest of his forces and get that third up. That's gonna put Schwinny in a pretty commanding lead at this point. Siege tank and more Hellions on the way, as well as a starport. None of those barracks being used to produce anything, just being used for a wall pretty. Definitely an odd choice. You usually see supply depot. But perhaps it's a bit of mind games anyway. Number of Hellions running across the map. Roach Warren and Roach is on the way for Kitty though. Looks like he has definitely decided he's at least facing enough bio to get out the right composition to fight it. These Zerglings find one Hellion, and when they go to surround it, find the rest of them. They do get one Hellion for about 10 Zerglings. And the rest of these Hellions are going to come down here, but the first Roaches are here to try to fight these Hellions. Now the Hellions do get all those Zerglings. Zerglings just don't deal with that very well, but these Roaches are more than enough to clean up those Hellions. Hellions are not very good against Roaches, and one Hellion escapes to tell the tale to its comrades back home, I guess. In the meantime, we see more and more siege tanks and Hellions on the way for our Terran player, Blue Flame. Not that Blue Flame is going to be helpful against the Roaches, but it certainly does roast drones fast. Bunker being salvaged. Just pretty much going full-on mech, another factory on the way. In the meantime, Burrow also being researched back home for a Zerg player with a pretty early infestation pick coming down, so we might well see some Swarm Host play. Number of Hydras also being put out. Vikings, and Hellions, and Siege Tanks on the side of our Terran. And an Armory just about done. And a Thor on the way as well, so pretty general mech composition with a little bit of everything mech for our Terran. And our Zerg player making a ton of Zerglings. So both players going for a pretty mixed composition at this point. Hellions moving out across the map, and our Zerg player taking advantage of that burrow. And player using scans to prevent that sort of shenanigans from actually doing anything. But our Zerg forces are right on top of all these sieged up tanks. Not going to go very well for the tanks. There's just too much Zerg here, and with them right on top of the tanks, these Hellions and Hellbats are not very good against roaches. They do get a number of the Hydras. Hydras are light units and do take extreme damage from those Blue Flame Hellions, but way too many roaches. In the meantime, our Terran is trying to take a third base, but I don't think he can hold it against his Zerg force. Each tank's doing well to hold them back, though. Our Zerg player burrowing these roaches. Now, the roaches do not have the burrow move upgrades, so they also don't get that extreme increased regen. Anyway, got a little engagement going on down here. Our Zerg player taking down this Thor and going to work on siege tanks. Roaches continuing to do work. But most of the roaches do go down. Siege tanks are pretty good against roaches with their bonus against armored. And there just isn't quite enough forces for a Zerg player to continue to attack, so he instead chooses to take turn and takes third. Three already on the way for our Zerg player, though, as our Terran player is only now just finishing up +1 attack and +1 armor is only recently started. So our Zerg player with significant upgrade lead. Another little engagement going down with Vipers having been added to the Zerg army. Those blinding clouds being absolutely clutch. All the tanks going down. Now these Vipers are quickly falling to the Vikings in the air, but that's just too much for Schwinny. GG is called. And another game for our Team Bear Sloth.